welcome to Martini Shot, a podcast production of nanticoSTUDIOS. I'm Jordyn.
And I'm Sarah.
And it's been a minute, Sarah. It's been a minute.
This feels like an impromptu podcast episode, but also it's a really nice start to jump back into the groove of things as well. So
yeah, I feel like actually I was going to say I feel like we need to ask for preemptive forgiveness if this is like a little off pace, but you know what? I'm choosing not to care. I think we're going to have a great time. We have a lot to talk about. Sarah, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the greatest event of the year, I think, that has happened, and that is the 2022 Oscars, because a lot did happen. And I think we need to discuss some of the elements that we're seeing in that.
Wild. Okay. Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm going off book already and we're going to mess everything up. But I will say I properly sat down and like watched the whole thing because fun behind the scenes fact, I did not watch it live. I couldn't. And then all of a sudden my phone was blowing up with all these Twitter things. And I was like, what is happening at the Oscars? And some frantic text to Sarah later. And but I will say, I honestly thought, besides the incident, TM, the slap, I think you actually put in the notes as like capital S, and I thought that was really funny. I thought that it had a lot of heart, like a lot, like besides the incident. I think that there was I actually wrote it down too in my notes. I might have cried, like teared up a couple of times. There's some really nice things. So
yeah, and I don't think we're gonna like get in too much detail of what exactly happened, because I think that would be overshadowing all of the great events that happened. A lot of firsts as far as awards go, which is really exciting, and I can't wait to discuss later.
Yes, no, for sure. And that's actually really beautifully put, Sarah. I couldn't agree more. Focus on all the beautiful things that happened.
Yes.
I know. So a little bit like behind the scenes, Sarah put together this great Google Doc before the Oscars happened, in which we each kind of put our predictions down. And then, which was actually kind of like my favorite part, was kind of like our thoughts about maybe who, if we were members of the Academy, who we would have, tried for, we would have put our flags in the ground. Sarah, what were you? Please share with me. I know you have some opinions on this.
Yes.
Share with me some of what you might consider like your biggest, can I say snubs? Is that too like inciting for this podcast? Like the biggest snubs.
Yeah. So first off, I fortunately was able to see a lot of these films at our film festival that we have in Savannah. And I thought Spencer was a very interesting film. It was a very interesting take on Princess Diana and a lot of I don't know how to explain a lot of the things that possibly went through her mind. It was a very interesting interpretation of the character. And it did get mixed reviews because of that. But regardless of the actual story, I think the cinematography of Spencer was actually quite incredible. And obviously Kristen Stewart was amazing. And she was up for a nomination but did not win, as we all know. Very sad. But I was surprised that the cinematography was not nominated. That was kind of a shocking bit to me. And then we saw House of Gucci, and I thought Lady Gaga was incredible as Best Actress. Again, another film that had a lot of mixed reviews. I don't know, some of the other characters and actors in the film maybe weren't as up to par, but I still think she did a really good job. And final and biggest pet peeve and complaint is that come on, didn't get nominated for anything. Literally any category. I mean, cinematography, director, actors, best picture, best original screenplay, like none. I was quite shocked to see that. And a little disappointed because it was one of my favorite films of the year. So, how about you?
100%. Like when I saw Come On in theaters, I think I texted you. I was crying. I thought it was the most heartfelt, pure film. Like to your point that I've probably seen. I would say like that I've seen all year. And so when it was absolutely ignored at the, I was shocked. I thought it would for sure. It was in my mind, I was like, oh, this is an easy Best Picture nom. Definitely probably some love for Joaquin Phoenix. And then also I thought Woody what is his name? Woody Norman. who played little boy. Forgive me for not remembering the character name. I thought he did a phenomenal job. So I was even thinking maybe like a best supporting or something. So yeah, that was the biggest. It was like honestly just shocking. I was like, this is a beautiful piece. Not to say that the other films weren't beautiful, but this was just so special. I still kind of am like reeling in my head. I'm not over it. I have not recovered.
I know. Yeah. What were some of your other snubs that you?
I was surprised, and maybe just because I have a lot of love for Sean Baker. I think that I really like him as a director when it comes to just his pieces feel really raw, and I was hoping for some love for him for Red Rocket. Maybe it wasn't like, okay, it was more of like I wish, as opposed to come on. I was like, wait, are you kidding? So I was surprised that once again, like Sean Baker wasn't like any love for him for Red Rocket. And also I know this I think maybe is a actually no, I feel like if I had the conversation I want to have about this, it's gonna go way too into that like film snobby kind of like conversation that everyone hates, as they should, because it's like really obnoxious. But I was kind of surprised the Fresh Dispatch didn't get anything. Like even like I was thinking like production design was a for sure, like give Wes Anderson some love. I don't know, did Wes Anderson not Wes Anderson himself? I don't know. So I know that's one, maybe that conversation is better reserved for like the cinephiles out there. But I was a little surprised about that. But yeah, once again, like Come On was the actual, in my mind, the actual upset, as oh no, yeah. I was vying for it so hard. So
yeah. I mean, not to get too argumentative about this, but it has similar themes of Coda, and I know they're like two completely stories, but at the end of the day, they're both stories about family issues and relationships. So with the similar themes in that film, I'm surprised that it wasn't nominated as well.
Yeah, and particularly like, it's an A24, which I feel like usually performs well, as well. And so that's one that I don't know. I have thoughts, as if like the Academy cares about the opinions of Jordan Gum, but that's when I was just sad, because I think that deserved some recognition, just because once again, like I thought it was one of the best films I've seen in the past 6 months or so. So how did we do overall though? Like I was trying to do the math about like our predictions.
You actually won, my friend. Yes, and this is I guess a good start to this conversation and topic. You won because you guessed a lot of the categories that Dune ended up winning, and that was my biggest shock, was at how many wins Dune won, and they were the leading film. Well, the technical nominations and things.
Let's talk about that for a second, because this was a situation where I don't know. It always feels weird to like talk about like your opinions, particularly when it feels like a podcast is like a public platform, because I can't, of course, have anything but respect for all of these artists. I was really surprised that Dune swept. Not that Dune was an incredible film. I think we talked about it before. Like sound to me was like the automatic shoe in for sure. That's incredible sound design. But I was, even if I picked some of them just because like they were like gut feelings, I was still kind of surprised. And once again, I still feel like cinematography, the fact that Dune took cinematography really, really surprised me. Not to speak ill of Dune cinematography, just because that was I thought it was such a strong category.
Yeah, no, same. Yeah, I think, cinematography was like a shock to me. What else? Production design was interesting because I thought that would have gone to West Side Story in my opinion, but I was clearly wrong.
Oh.
And things like visual effects is a very touchy category because it's always who you don't expect to win. I obviously was rooting for Spider-Man. I thought Free Guy was pretty impressive, and that's why I chose that. But again, Dune won that category as well. So
yeah, which once again, like I expected it to like do well, but I couldn't. It like swept. Like I was like impressed and like shocked in like a positive way, for how well. Like even like honestly, even Score. Like Score to me was kind of like when we were doing our predictions.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I felt like it felt wrong, but it felt right in a way. So that's why I was like, oh, maybe it will. And I was it's one of those things where it's like, when you're like, oh yeah, I put my flag in the ground behind this. I knew this was, you feel good about your prediction. That's why I don't feel like this like is deserved, because some of them where I was like squinting my like eyes and I was like grating my teeth and I was like, maybe. So yeah. But some of them I would love to talk a little bit about if I can just like, have a little like positive rant. Speaking of West Side Story, I am so happy that West Side Story got some love. Maybe we talked about this before. Maybe not, but going to see West Side Story. I went to see it with some friends like the weekend it came out. And I'm a huge fan of movie musicals this is an obvious thing. I'm a huge fan of Steven Spielberg. Even Rachel, oh my gosh, now I'm blanking. Rachel Zegler?
Yes.
Zegler? I remember her like watching her like YouTube videos. Anyway, going into seeing West Side Story, I was kind of like prepared to like have a good time. But I don't know, I haven't really vibed with a lot of the movie musicals that have come out in the past 8 or 10 years. West Side Story blew me away. I like was in shock after I was like, this is incredible. I was like, this like this was everything that the movie musicals needed. This is like Rodgers and Hammerstein are like applauding from their grave. It just felt like, I mean, it's Steven Spielberg. It was incredible.
Yes.
And so I was so happy to see West Side Story get some love, because I mean, it was weird because I feel like when I was reading the reviews after opening weekend, they were kind of, middle of the road, when I was like, what do you mean? This is the best movie musical that's come out in 10 years. So to see it not only get some great noms, including Best Picture, but to see oh no, I'm so bad with names. Ariana DeBose. Oh my gosh, this is where I embarrass myself. I need to write like.
I do not know how to pronounce her name.
Usually, I like listen to it and then I overthink it, and so that now I'm like nervous to say names. But I'm so happy that she took Best Supporting Actress. Because when I saw that was who I was hoping for, and But that was one where I was thinking, I just want this. I don't know if this is going to happen, but this is what I want. And I'm just so happy it all worked out.
Yeah. So, and honestly, and to jump into my next like little topic here, like for all of the acting categories, this was all kind of pre-notioned by the SAG Awards that happened. Both leads and both supporting categories also won in the SAG Awards. So, which was honestly great. My surprise was Jessica Chastain, because obviously Jessica won the SAG Award. I was voting for Kristen Stewart in the Oscars because she was not nominated in the SAG category. And I should have known. That Jessica was going to win, because it's not always the case, but most of the time, if you look at the SAG Awards, it's kind of like a hint of what people are thinking about. So yeah.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, and it's an unfair question because I don't know the answer for myself. But when it comes to your Oscar predictions for this year, how many do you think were ones you thought would win versus ones you like just wanted to win, or third category was the overlap? You know what I'm saying? Does that make I don't know if that makes sense.
For the acting category, they were all people who I thought was gonna win, not necessarily who I wanted to win.
Sure.
Coda for Best Picture was not who I immediately thought of, but I'm still glad that they won. I was actually kind of rooting for The Power of the Dog, because I think that was an incredible film that came out this year. In contrast, for Best Director, Jane Campion, who directed Power of the Dog, I was a little bit surprised that she won, and it's incredible that she did, because it's our third female director, and it's the second year in the row that a female has won. Incredible. But I was actually kind of rooting for Kenneth for Belfast to win. So it was a mixture. It was a mixture of people who I expected to win, because I did want to get as many right wins on this prediction sheet, but also there's a couple in there that I kind of like slid in. I was like, I'm rooting for you. But
yeah, I think that just goes to show like obviously how it's all like subjective. And even like during the Oscars when they did a segment with kind of like the audience favorites, and I know that's where like obviously this is where I bring up Andrew Garfield because I think that's such an interesting conversation, you know, versus like the fan favorites versus like what the Academy says or when those overlap. But yeah, I have such a love. I feel like this is actually more your conversation.
It is.
So let me just open the floor. Sarah Layton, can you please give us your thoughts on Andrew Garfield, please?
Incredible person, incredible human being. No, I'm blushing. No, I think Tick Tick Boom was an amazing film. And I'm also a little surprised that it wasn't nominated for more categories as well. Like that could technically be counted as a snub. Because Robin De Jesus, who was incredible in that film, should have also been in the Best Supporting Actors category, and possibly could have had a fighting chance with Troy Kotsur. So, but the conversation is to Andrew Garfield. Like, there's a whole story about he didn't know how to sing before this movie, and he was training and all of the stuff just to play this one character, Jonathan Larson. And I just thought that was incredible. It's those stories and like the processes of how actors work to create a film that really, I think, puts meaning behind winning an Oscar to me. So yeah, I was rooting for him. I was kind of expecting him to not win, unfortunately, just because I kind of knew Will Smith had it in the bag. But I was still rooting for him nonetheless.
100%. I think that's a beautiful point. And I mean, I feel like this is in any Andrew Garfield film that I've seen, but particularly with Tick Tick Boom, there is such this like openness and rawness that I think really comes across, which is, and I think that's I think anybody who's like an artist or in the creative industries, I don't know about you, Sarah, but I bawled through like half that movie.
Yes.
I was like, this is like an artist. This is a movie for artists. And I think that was such a beautiful, you know, and once again, I think that goes back to, granted, I'm not on any selection committee. Sorry. So for the benefit of the listening audience, I am in office with motion sensitive lights, and sometimes the lights go out. Anyway, I think it goes back to like thinking of like how these films are these people or these, you know, professional technicians behind the films are selected for awards like this. Like, how does it track between like, you know, greater appeal versus like niche audience? And I think, well, the conclusion of my rant here is that I would never actually would want to ever be in any of these selection committees. I don't know how you choose.
Yeah, it's terribly hard. I mean, and a lot of the actors say like it's just an honor just to be nominated in general. Like, even if they don't win, it's already an incredible feat for you to be nominated for something. So yeah, I respect all these actors and couldn't imagine choosing, because it's terribly hard to do. But yeah, so I guess jumping off of the Andrew Garfield topic, who was also in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, how did you feel about those wins?
With Tammy Faye?
Yes.
Oh, I was rooting for that. Like, I think there's something even just about like how that film feels. It feels like a documentary in a weird way. It feels like it was there's something about it that just like you watch it and you're like, I get it. And I think that only speaks to the commitment of like, obviously like the makeup and costume team, makeup and hair team, but as obviously as well the talent on that film. I think it just granted, I am not an actress, I never have been. I don't understand I can, you know, intellectually understand, but not personally understand the process of becoming a character, or particularly when we're talking about like, you know, when you're portraying a real person, how you get into that headspace and still somehow make it performance in your own. And I think that just speaks to the talents of, you know, these casts to do it in such a way that feels so tangible and real. I think that's what's really fascinating. And even when you look at the people nominated in these actors and actresses category, you know, most, I'm trying to like do math in my head real quick, are, you know, portraying a real life person, which I think maybe just speaks to the art of that. And it can't be understood. I think that was one that I don't want to say it like that film fell under the radar, because obviously I think it got like a, you know, a proper wide release. But I think because it's what I don't know how to contextualize it, but I'm glad that it got its time and its space as well. Particularly in a awards ceremony that usually honors, you know, whether it's grander films or more heartfelt film. This is just like a nice film that I'm glad has a space as well, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and once again, that freaking makeup team is incredible. You know, it's that, and I know that now I'm switching completely away from the Oscars. I can't stay on topic, but moving now to Hulu and the Pamela Anderson Hulu series. Like, still with that, like the artistry of these. Well, I don't know. Is it art? Is it technicality? Is it both? To take real people and put it, you know, in film that we can see now. And it just is incredible to me. Yeah. So yeah, I was happy to see. But okay, to answer your actual question in a very concise way, yes, I was very glad to see it take some wins.
Yes. Let's see. Which should we dive into first? To be perfectly honest, I am not too familiar with any of the shorts that won. I'm not really usually watching animated or the documentary side of things, but I was glad that Summer of Soul won Best Documentary Feature, because that was something that also aired at the festival, and Questlove actually came and got to talk about it, which was really incredible. So
can you talk about your experience with okay, because I feel like he's this really genuine, like authentic person. What was your I guess, you know, so you heard him speak? Or
I did not hear him speak. I was not in the room, unfortunately, but he did come here.
That's so cool.
And I think he just, I don't know, he just has like a warm personality. He's like a gentle giant, I guess you could call him.
No, that's beautiful. I like that.
I think, and I always thought of him as a musician, to be honest, and I never really thought of him as a filmmaker. So it's awesome to see him like come out with a piece like this and to win, which is amazing. And I know he had a great team behind him too. So yeah.
It felt like there were a lot of first time nominated, first time win kind of situations. And once again, maybe I could be mistaken and this is just like par for the course, but it felt like there was a lot of new faces or new to, you know, the film side faces. Yeah. And it was cool to see. I don't know. I love listening to the acceptance speeches, and even Questlove's. I think I wrote notes for everyone that made me like cry, and that was probably one of them. Just because he just has like you say, a gentle giant. Like, he's a beautiful spirit. When it comes to the shorts, they're kind of hard because some of them you can't actually access. Some of them are on YouTube, some of them are on Vimeo. But some aren't. But I watched the live action shorts, the ones that were available. And I was pulling for The Long Goodbye because I think it's actually on YouTube, free to watch.
Okay.
I think it's like just a really wonderful short film, obviously a very powerful story. I think it's also like very powerfully told. It kind of, to me, swings just outside of like conventional filmmaking that makes it like really interesting and fresh, but still like palpable to maybe like more people are comfortable with like more traditional like styles of, and that's what I think this is a whole nother episode, but this is what I think is like the beauty of like short filmmaking anyway, is that you have that like freedom to, you know, stretch a little. And I think that does a great job. And once again, though, the story itself is, I think, just a really powerful story. So I was really happy to see that. When it comes to the documentary shorts, I wasn't too familiar with them, except I was reading the long line or the synopsis for When We Were Bullies, and it sounded really intriguing. And it actually, today we're recording this on March 30th. It premieres on HBO Max tonight. So
whoa, I'll have to check it out then.
yes, 9 p.m. I'm actually I'm it's like it feels like just from watching the trailer, it feels like oh shoot, what's his name? Casey Neistat and Neve from Catfish, and is it Max? Is that the guy with him as partner? Maybe I'm throwing the spot.
I think so.
Like Max, his name slipped my head.
Yeah.
But it feels like one of like a Max or like a Casey Neistat style, like HBO short doc. It has it feels cool, and the story's kind of interesting. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see that.
Awesome. Yeah, and again, it unfortunately didn't win, but like for it to be nominated in this category is incredible. So I'm definitely going to be checking that out tonight. So
yeah, I think because when it comes to the short films, there's so many, and to see them like looking at the ones that win, and you look from years, the genres are always so different, and I'm like I feel like it's a hard category to win in whether it's live action, animated, or even like the doc shorts. But I was glad. I don't know if they were able to show the acceptance speeches on like the live show, but I was able to watch them in the replay, which I always thought. I knew that there was like some contention with airtime.
I'm very upset. I think their excuse was for COVID reasons, but I don't know why extending the Oscars just a little bit longer for that would ruin it if they're all in the same room anyway. Because it wasn't aired, but they were still accepting their things off air. It didn't make any sense to me, but I'm a little peeved about that, because editing obviously was like one of the categories that wasn't, talked about and publicly on air, and I'm kind of like an editor, kind of sort of.
No, you are. Claim that.
Yeah, it's a really important category to me. And I'm still waiting for the day stunts are included in the Oscars, because I think the amount of I don't know, manpower that goes into stunts and the process of, risking your body. And I feel like we need to recognize those people who are in that field more. So
absolutely.
To the Academy Awards, you guys need to figure anyone's out there listening.
Obviously an avid listener of ours. They're big fans.
Yes. They're one of our 5 listeners.
Well, yeah, we'll send them like a nice little press package. With, for your consideration, include stunts as what is it? Stunt performers. What's the proper classification?
I don't know. You usually refer to them as stuntmen, but I don't know if that's like the correct proper term.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Stunt people.
Stunt folk.
But it was this was super fun. I'm just gonna name it and claim it now, Sarah. I feel like this is our first annual Oscars discussion. I feel like next year we're gonna have to amp it up and do like a live reaction, which kind of scares me. But
yeah. If there's anything I've taken from this, anything can literally happen. So, a little live, a live recording, cause some drama, that'd be fun.
Crazy. And what's even, oh my gosh. Wild. But yeah, I think it was once again, besides I know there's a lot of controversy with the slap. But I do think that besides that, it was a beautiful night. I really loved all of the the homages to the Godfather and James Bond. It was cool.
There were a lot of little fun moments in between. Did you have any favorite performances or things like that?
I do have thoughts.
Okay.
I mean, goes without saying, but Beyonce opening this show. I mean, what more could the people want? I thought that was beautiful. I think it's a beautiful song, obviously. And even just the tennis ball green, like costumes were just
Yeah.
sure. Maybe it was like on the nose. I don't care. I ate that up. I thought it was delicious and lovely.
Ooh,
And
Ivy made her first like live performance, which was cool.
so fun. Yeah.
Budding artist.
We that's cool, like to see, and then to have that. Yeah, that's always cool too, to see like the the new and the old. And that was, I think, was so fun about tonight, about this year's Oscars, was that you have like these legends on stage with these like newbies, and it makes it such a cool dynamic. Which
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. Let's talk about the Encanto song that was not even submitted for consideration for our best original song, but went viral, and then now is only. I think that and we can get into this other bit in a minute, but that and Coda taking Best Picture, I think, speak very much to maybe where things are headed.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of good things on the horizon when we're making steps towards inclusivity. I did see a TikTok though, and it was like, they had obviously translators, and I don't know what the proper word is, like people who sign obviously for those in Coda, but none throughout the rest of the Oscars, as if like deaf people only want to see that and only that part of the Oscars, which is a little frustrating. But nonetheless, I think when we see more films like Coda, I think there's just good things, It's also like the first film on a streaming service to win, which kind of changes the shift for things and how things on Netflix and Hulu and HBO, and this was on Apple, are perceived. So.
Absolutely. I think that's like a really interesting point, particularly with Apple being the one to claim that title after, Netflix and other streaming services have been kind of churning them out for a few years.
Yeah.
I was reading a really interesting article, so I can't take credit for this perspective at all, but it was in the vein of that, about like when it comes to like Apple's commitment to their like selection and their curation process, and how that has enabled them to be the first to take that Best Picture award. I think it's just gonna be really interesting to see how things play out in years to come. Is this going to be the new trend, or is it going to oscillate year on year? And even like other like ancillary conversations that I've like I think, actually, to be honest, probably through TikTok or Twitter, I've seen with that, and I never considered this before. But the fact that it's an Apple original film, only available on Apple TV Plus, librarians, there's been some librarians who have spoken out about how they can't carry those in libraries. So people have called, after Sunday night or Monday, I guess, people were calling some libraries saying like, hey, can I reserve, I saw that this movie Coda won Best Picture, I want to watch it. And they're like, oh, we don't have it because it's not something that has, and sure, maybe down the line there will be, maybe a physical distribution will be a thing. But I thought that was like a very interesting, once again, just this interesting conversation to come out of that. But yeah, I think it's like I think it's super cool. You know how I feel about like digital studios, Nantico, obviously one of them, and I think it's so fun to see. Even if, no, I guess in the grand scheme of things, no one's considering Apple to be the underdog, knowing what Apple is and who Apple is. But in some regards, when we're talking about like a baby streaming service versus these like Goliaths of Hollywood regime, is really cool to see. Yeah. I'm all about it. And I think once again, it just speaking about also back to like Coda and the themes, and I think it just goes to say again about giving a platform to new voices, to diverse voices, and people from different backgrounds, and how there's, I guess, there's more access than there was even 5-10 years ago to diverse storytelling. So I'm super stoked. But once again, I think it's a cool, oh my gosh, the film, the cinephile's favorite word, a cool juxtaposition, to have like, moments like Coda, and then having like Liza Minnelli presenting that award, like to have, that like the legends versus the newbies on this scene, I think is just a really cool cool moment.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
shout out to Lady Gaga for being like an amazing human being. Um, because I don't know, she just, I don't know. I love Lady Gaga, so.
Well, I think what's been so fun to see Lady Gaga when we're talking about Liza Minnelli, we're talking about Tony Bennett is, um, we're all human and we all like just want to be treated like human, to be treated with dignity and respect. And I think she does that very intentionally, but without making it like a thing. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we're all people and I will treat you like people. And I think that's something, and just to put other people at ease when maybe they're in a very uncomfortable situation or overwhelming, that I think that speaks greatly to, her character. And okay. I should probably have like a tally of how many times I like start crying during the Oscars because I was sitting there and I was like, oh, it's just so beautiful. Like humanity, we're all people. We just want to be loved and to be, and anyway. And then of course, Coda wins, and I'm just like this basket case. So, but but to go back to another streaming service's Best Picture nominated film, I think we both were pulling for The Power of the Dog. If my memory serves me correctly.
Incredible. And I think that was honestly probably one of the more shocking things is that it didn't win as much as we anticipated it to. I think they only came out with Best Director, if I'm correct.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it was nominated for a lot, like almost every category. And it's a little shocking that it didn't turn out that way. But again, Coda is still incredible, and I still swear by it. Like, up against a lot of talented films. Jane Campion is a really interesting director because I don't know if you saw the documentary on Netflix. It's like 20 minutes long, so it's not much of a documentary, but it's just like showing her process and how she works with Benedict Cumberbatch and Kristen Dunst and all those actors. I actually watched it for an assignment on how to work with actors, and she's so, the way she works is so cool, and I think this is why she won Best Director, is because she lets her actors roam the space and kind of form the character. You kind of just watch them. You watch like Benedict start as Benedict, and he just kind of like transforms into this like Western cowboy kind of dude, just by playing with the costumes and the space. And she's very much like one of those directors that is like, if you have an idea, if you want to try something, go for it, and we can like roll off of that. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I mean, she I don't know. The way she works is really cool, and I obviously didn't see it beforehand, but now after she won that Oscar, I'm like, yeah, I totally understand why, and she deserves it.
I was not familiar of said documentary, and now I'm like, right, that's so. There's nothing I love. I think we all appreciate and love like behind the scenes stuff, but particularly when you can see like artists process. So cool. Yeah, and I think that like. When you read like the log line, you're like, oh, it's in like a Western adaptation. Oh, okay, sure. But it feels so new and very eerie, very like it made me way more uncomfortable than I anticipated. Just because of like the pacing of it, but like obviously like in a good way uncomfortable. But yeah, and I think too, if I'm not, I could be mistaken on this point, but I feel like it felt that The Power of the Dog was kind of like the favorite to win. Maybe that's
was.
Okay, cool.
I would agree. We had a little bit of a discussion, as one film class does, and it was like we were getting off topic and we were just talking about the Oscars that were coming up. So this was like back in February, and my professor was like, "Yeah, I think, based on this list, I think The Power of the Dog's gonna win," and we were all like kind of like agreeing with him because we're like checking off the reasons why we think one would work versus one probably wouldn't win, and the whole thing. But it's all subjective because everyone has opinions. But I agreed with him. I was like, yeah, I think The Power of the Dog has the potential to win too, and it's currently, I think, the favorite out of all of these. But then it didn't. So that was interesting. But I think, again, for the millionth time, I think Coda put up a good fight and won, I think, because that was another favorite. That wasn't, I would, to be honest, I'll say that probably wasn't as popular as Power of the Dog, just because I think it is on Apple, and I don't think as many people watch Apple. So I think that's the reason it went under the radar for a lot of people.
I think that's a fair point. I didn't think of that, but you're right. I feel like Netflix is more of a household streaming service than Apple TV Plus. And something that I think is cool about Coda, I feel like the people who I've talked to that saw it and loved it, even obviously before the Oscars, were people that wouldn't necessarily consider themselves to be like, film fanatics. And I think that's cool to have a best picture, because sometimes the best picture can be more of like an artistic piece that might not settle as well with people that are more, might consider themselves more just like mainstream film enthusiasts. So I think that was cool that it obviously straddled both of those types of audiences. And it just feels like an underdog story. Hearing them talk about, like, even in the acceptance speeches about the difficulties of making it. I think it's like Apple bought it for like 25 million or something. So it's like, well, what do you mean an underdog? But it's still, I think it feels like an underdog film. Like, it feels like
sure.
they struggle to get to happen, which I think translates in the best way on screen. So I'm interested to hear, because I think you have a really cool perspective as a student in a film program. What a 20-year-old, what are other students, your friends or your classmates, what are the thoughts? What's the consensus?
Consensus on Best Picture and like the favorite to win, or
Sure, I'm
in general?
as just general when it comes to the Oscars. Like, what's the vibe
Okay,
among the film
for
students?
For sure. So we, well, if you talk to my professor, he'll tell you it's a show for very wealthy people. He's not a favorite of the show. But nonetheless, we all have to agree whether the politics of it. These films are here because they mean something to people and because they're really, really good and well done. Again, subjective. People have their opinions. But yeah, as far as like the student population goes, looking at the list, Dune was a mixed batch between us. There were some people who hated it and there were some people that loved it. So
Interesting.
I feel indifferent about it, honestly. The sound design is incredible. The music is incredible. Performances, I think Oscar Isaac was probably the best actor in that film. But again, to recap a little bit, I was shocked by the amount of wins it won. So I do feel indifferent about it, but some people like completely hated the story and thought it was way too long and things like that. Looking down the list, West Side Story, and I hate to tell you, was also like a mixed bag. A lot of people didn't like it.
Unacceptable opinion. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. I think the favorite out of this list from at least my class that I had last quarter, I think Belfast was a good one amongst people.
That's fair.
And I maybe it was because it was also at the film festival and people, I don't know, feel more partial to people who've come visited, because forgive me if I mispronounce his last name, but Kenneth Branagh, I think, he visited and he won like an award SCAD gave him, and then the film premiered. So that was really cool, and he's a great director. I love him as a director. So yeah, things like original screenplay and best director, I was rooting for that. Trying to think. I really liked The Lost Daughter. That's also on Netflix. It was nominated for Best Actress and Best Adapted Screenplay. But I don't think it had a fighting chance against some of its competitors. But I still think it's a really good standalone film if you're up to watching it on Netflix. And I'm trying to scroll through this list.
I think the other thing that, I mean, this goes to exactly your point with The Lost Daughter, is I really love the cinematography of the tragedy of Macbeth.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about that black and white that's just done so damn well. I think it's like it manages to have like this silkiness to it, but it's still like a really sharp contrast. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's another like tasty, I'll eat that all day. It was like, I don't think it'll win for cinematography, but I just want to put it out there that I see you, Macbeth. I respect it. 100%. I love it. So that was like it visually just looks, even comparing that to like, come on. I don't know. I think I am not a cinematographer, so I have no understanding of how you like, give such style to something that's in black and white or, you know, like monochrome or whatever. But I think, well, I just want to once again, it feels so ostentatious to be like, oh yes, my stamp of approval, like as if anyone cares. But that's just something I was happy to see that I got some love there. I thought that looked really cool.
For sure. Let's bounce to some of the music again.
Love.
Let's see. The song of the hour that won was No Time to Die, which was by Billie Eilish and Phineas. How did you feel about that winning?
You know, I don't know what possessed me to not put that as my selection, because I was like, yeah, of course it should have won. That's an incredible. And then watching their live performance, I was like,
yeah, incredible. That was one of my favorites. Yeah.
I actually, I think I wrote it down in like the pre-show notes about like giving you props and basically like kicking myself. Oh yeah, I think said was a good call. Kicking myself. I think I got wrapped up. So oh my gosh, predicted. I was like, what's the word? Predicted that the Encanto song would win. I think I was just biased because of its like virality right now.
Right, yeah.
But damn, that is a great song. And once again, hearing it live, Sarah, you get all the props for that, because that was it.
Well, thank you. You win all the other props for picking Dune for every category. And I was like, oh, there's no way. Like, I mean, this one's better than Dune, or, you know. I did not think that Dune would win. I think that was everyone's shock, to be honest. Like, it was good, obviously. But
I think I was even cheating when I was predicting. I was like, I'm just like squatting. I was like, okay, it's not going to win all of these, but it's going to pick up some. So
yeah.
That was not indicative of my, good taste. That was me just like playing the game. So but you enjoyed their live performance?
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't call myself a huge Billie Eilish fan, but I definitely enjoy like what she puts out. And like the moment, this was like, to be honest, years ago, because this was before COVID. But when they announced that she was going to sing the theme song, I was like, I can see that. Like, I can see her honestly killing it, and she did. It's not like a fun song. It's not something like you dance to, but it's a really nice ballad, and it's really beautifully done. And props to Phineas, because he puts all of his hard effort into, making like the production of it. And I am a Hans Zimmer fan, so the fact that he scored the film, and another note, also scored Dune, which was really cool, that he was kind of like, I don't know, like he was what's the word, battling himself like in the nominations for having two different films with nominations. So that was cool.
Yeah, they're such a talent. I think that's the thing for people who just think, oh, well, Billy's just for, emotional 15-year-olds. But then she comes out and her and Phineas come out with songs like that and performances like that. And you're like, no, they've earned their space. Like no one's doing, a lot of people I think are trying, but no one's doing it like they are. So that was a beautiful performance. Also, let's talk about, I know we talked about Encanto a minute ago, but the little Megan Thee Stallion feature was very surprising, but I thought it was cool. I like the blending of genres.
It was interesting. I think the overall consensus was that people just wanted to hear the original without like the extra effects, but I mean it's like the Oscars, so like you need to spice it up just a little bit. So yeah, I didn't mind it. It was pretty cool. I still love seeing the original cast members up there and singing like the first half of that the song. That was really cool. Really sad that Lin-Manuel couldn't be there. He posted on Twitter that his wife had COVID, and he was up for Oscars, obviously, which if he had one, he would have gotten his EGOT. So a little sad for him, yes. But there's always next time. I know, Lin will continue to make amazing content. So
100%. You're not wrong, but I don't think of it because I think of him as so young. But he's got so much ahead of him. I don't think that's gonna be
No. There'll be more films he produces and creates. Like he's another one that was also kind of going against himself because Tick Tick Boom obviously was up for nominations, which he had directed, and then Encanto as well. So, which is cool, awesome, and it's kind of like the testament of artists being productive during COVID and still creating things, despite this past 2 years. So.
100%. And I think that's it's cool too that Lin-Manuel directed that like a musical theater.
His directing debut too.
Yeah, and I think what a beautiful testimony. I just that it's one of our own are telling this story. Different directors from different types of backgrounds coming out telling stories and but still, once again, honoring where we came from. I think this is when you were talking about your professor. It's like a show, which I can understand. It's like a, a lot of pomp and circumstance. I am not a fan of the comedy bits. They could take if they take all the comedy bits out so we have time that editors can accept their awards and give their speeches, I don't think that's a loss. But I thought that Kevin Costner's introduction to that was a moment. I was like, yeah, damn it, that's what this is all about. This is the best industry in the world. I was having one of those big moments because I was like, beautiful. Yeah. This is what it is. So
yeah, 100%. Let's see, what else do we? I guess we can't go without this episode without talking about the man of the hour, which was Will Smith, and him being up for Best Actor for King Richard. Did you see that film?
I did not see King Richard. Not intentionally. I just didn't happen to see it. Did you see it?
I have not also. So we're in the same boat. I had every intention to go see it, and I just never got to it, unfortunately. I think I was busy the weekend that it was playing or something, but it's still on my list to watch because I definitely am interested in learning about that story because Serena and Venus Williams are incredible, and I kind of want to learn about their upbringing a little bit more than I already know.
Absolutely. Even the trailer taught me more than I realized that you didn't know about their story and their upbringing. So and from what I can tell, that's a win that seems to be well received. When it comes to Best Actor. So yeah, that's definitely something we'll have to watch, and then we'll have to reconvene
for a later date.
And just one little kind of a side note, but still relevant. Reba. I was so happy to see Reba. And then I was squinting and I was like, is that Kevin Jonas? Which I thought was, one of those things that you never thought would happen. But
yes.
and Travis Barker, like the three, I was like, love it. So that was a cool, I love Reba. So that was a great moment. It felt like we were just honoring these like industry veterans. And I like that.
It's amazing. I mean, TikTok's not really the best reliable source, but I saw that like it was like this guy who was bartending for the Oscars, and he said the two nicest people that came up to him during the ceremony was Rami Malek and Reba. And that just like makes me feel good about life, because like she's like, a Dolly Parton equivalent, I think, in my mind.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
queen.
I'm going to accept that as canon, and as truth. So
Yes, facts.
Oh, that's lovely. So I guess Sarah, as we're thinking about maybe wrapping things up, let me just get your like one paragraph conclusion of your feelings on the 2022 Oscars.
I think, in light of the events that did happen, I think, though despite a little bit overshadowed, there was a lot of amazing things to come out of the ceremony. A lot of incredible films that we haven't seen in a while, I think, because unfortunately the last couple of years have been a little bit disappointing, and due to there being a lack of films in the industry, I think this was a really strong comeback for the film and television industry and for Hollywood in general. A lot of amazing performances, all well-deserving, a lot of incredible documentaries and films and all different facets of production, whether it be sound or editing or visual effects, music. I just think everyone's so deserving. I'm super, super happy that Coda won. I couldn't think of a better film, to be honest. I'm like, we all had the ones that we were rooting for, but in the end, like, I think we're all still content with who won. In my mind, I am. And yeah, I was really happy about the ceremony and how things turned out. There was no huge upsets besides, the thing that happened, but as far as categories go, I totally understand and am glad that those categories won.
That's really beautifully said, Sarah.
Oh, thank you.
How about you? Should have gone last.
Oh.
No, but no, sincerely, I think you've very well articulated my thoughts as well. Yeah, I think it was just a great showing of talent, and it felt like, oh, we're back, like Hollywood's back. Yeah. And yeah, I'm really excited, even from an industry standpoint, with wins like Coda, to see, where things go in the future. Like, I'm excited to see more of these underdog production companies, distribution companies, whatever, kind of rise up, kind of how A24 has in the past couple of years. I'm excited to see the shift and the opportunity for, an even more diverse pool of artists to come in to tell more unique and more compelling stories, and to be honored for that, not just to have the access to share, but be honored on Hollywood's biggest night. So I'm excited.
Amazing. Absolutely. I am very excited to see what next year brings, and kind of like the films that we'll be eyeing that are coming out later this year and things like that. So we will have to come up with some more podcast episodes to talk about films that we're seeing later this year, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of amazing ones.
Oh yeah, for sure. And also too, there's a couple new TV things coming out that I'm excited about.
That's true. That's true. We can also have an Emmys discussion in the future.
And it doesn't really fit our mold, but I do love the Tonys as well. So
I do. Yes. Let's just cover every major. Heck, let's just throw in the Grammys that are coming up.
Yeah,
too.
we just become an awards show commentary podcast. Giving our 2 cents in the in the ether of everyone giving their 2 cents.
We should have done the BAFTAs that came out too, man. Like
we need to also do like the Independent Spirit Awards.
That would definitely be probably in most in line with what we're talking about, to be honest.
What is a brand? We don't know. We don't know her. No.
We're still molding ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. We're still like in the cocoon. Figure it out. Here we are. So with that, thank you so much for checking out this week's episode of Martini Shot.
And to take a look at what we're working on, casting calls, newsletters, and more, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at nantico, and our website at nanti.co, which is nanti.co. We also are on YouTube and on TikTok. See you next week.